This is Astrid Plain of Animotion.
You are an obsession with my obsession. Who do you want me to make you sleep with me?
And you are listening to the New Wave Podcast.
Welcome back to the New Wave Music Podcast. As always, this is Steve.
And hey, I'm T-Bone.
Hey, T-Bone, can you believe we've been doing this for a year now?
Unbelievable. It's been a journey.
Yes, it has. We'd like to thank all our listeners who have stuck with us and all the new ones we've picked up, and we're looking forward to year 2 of the New Wave Music Podcast.
And hey, we'd also like to give a shout out to our listeners in Adelaide, Australia. We really appreciate you being with us.
So, T-Bone, let's go ahead and jump into our first review. Today, we're going to be reviewing the newest album from Bananarama. You'll no doubt remember Bananarama from their mega hit, Cruel Summer. Venus.
She's got it. Yeah, baby, she's got it. I'm your Venus. I'm your fire. Your desire.
Or Robert De Niro's Waiting.
Robert De Niro's waiting, talking Italian. Robert De Niro's waiting, talking Italian.
Yeah, so this album is called Masquerade. It came out this year, 2022. Steve, it's their 12th studio album, a fair amount of material over the past 40 years. Their last album was in 2019 called In Stereo. And just as I mentioned, next year, 2023, is going to be the 40th anniversary of their first album, Deep Sea Skiving. So on this album, we have both Sarah Dallin and Karen Woodward. They were original singers with the band. And then along with them is Ian Masterson. He's pretty much a longtime collaborator. He did the synths and guitars on this album, as well as co-writing many of the songs. Sadly, Siobhan Fay, who was with the girls early in their career, she did come back to go on tour with them around 2017 or 18, but she decided not to be a part of this album.
So, T-Bone, let's go ahead and jump into the album. The opening track is called Favorite.
Said it was your favorite, but now you're just complacent. My heart grows impatient, but I won't be chasing. You won't find a better replacement.
And T-Bone, to me, this is a great way to open the album. But you may not know this is actually a cover track on the album. It's actually a cover of Alice D., who is daughter of Sarah Dallin, back from 2018. It's very different from her version a little bit. I like how this one opened up from the opening keyboards to that infectious chorus. This is easily one of my new favorite songs of the year. I highly recommend this one. Really enjoyed it. And if you're curious, the Alice D's cover, it is different. It's more of an R&B type sound.
Impatient, but I won't be chasing. You won't find a better replacement.
In my opinion, this is one how they say mother knows best, and she did a great job in highly improving that track.
Well, you know, that's interesting that you said that. I knew that it was co-written by Sarah's daughter, Alice. I didn't know that she did it originally. So that's news to me. Yeah. And this is actually the first single on the album. It has a great beat to open it up. And Dallin and Woodward, I think they sound just great on it. They have wonderful harmony together. Then there's the swirling keyboards that I think really enhances the track. And I just love that chorus. Never was your favorite. Now you're just complacent. My heart grows impatient, but I won't be chasing. You won't find a better replacement. I just love the wording on that. And this actually is one of my favorite songs on the album.
Oh, no doubt. From there, we go to the track Stay Wild. And this one's almost picking up where Favorite left off. Again, this one does feature some outstanding synth work, outstanding vocals. During the climax of the song, I love not only the vocal mix, but the keyboards and the percussions work amazingly well. My only minor complaint on this song is it sounds too much like Favorite. And if you're not paying attention, you think it's still just one long song.
Well, and I think I got to say, I think we're going to find this kind of a common thread on this album. You're absolutely right. That dance beat does continue. I do like how that beat kind of fades out late in the track, then pops up back at the finish of the song. I thought it was a nice choice.
Then we go to track number 3, Velvet Lies.
'Cause you can lift me up like no one else can do. But I'm gonna leave it all behind and forget you. I cried with you with the tears.
As good as the first 2 songs were, I really like how this one kind of takes a little bit of a different tempo. This one's more bass and percussion focused, but it works very well. The melody on this is also a standout. So far, T-Bone, I'm 3 for 3 of these songs.
Yeah, this one is the second song that was co-written by Alice. She did a number of songs with her mom on this album. And surprise, it's another dance track. But I really do think it's the vocals of Sarah and Karen, especially during the chorus, which make the track as strong as it is. The synths, though they are obviously present, seem to take a little bit of a back seat to those great vocals. And that'll take us up to the 4th track, Masquerade, the title track.
Living a masquerade. Don't let the stardust fade away. 'Cause you can be who you want to be.
It's no wonder that this was the second single on the album, Steve. Not only does it have a great beat, but the ladies show their vocal chops both on the leads and also on the backing vocals behind it.
This one, again, like you said, features some haunting vocals, outstanding synth work. Like the song says, or the lyrics say in the song, don't let the stardust fade away. I hope that it doesn't fade away on this album.
Yeah. Well, and that leads up to number 5, which is another one of my favorite songs on this album, Running with the Night.
We were running with the night. You and I danced till morning light.
And Steve, this is the 3rd song that was co-written by Alice. It starts with some excellent synths that pull you right in. But as on the previous track, it's the chorus that makes this song so appealing. Their voices, their vocals are so strong. The same synth note that starts the track comes back later on and really brings this song together. Like I say, one of my favorites on the album.
T-Bone, I agree with you 100% on this. I really enjoy that chorus, was the highlight of this song. But I also like how the tempo changed going into the song, building up to the chorus. You also get a great synth keyboard introduction into the song. And T-Bone, I know you're not a huge fan of remixes, but I'd love to see this one get like a club dance remix.
No, I know. I imagine it would be really good. No question. So that takes us up to the next track, Bad Love.
Give me that bad love, baby. Straight talking, no time wasting. You're the one that I want. So give me your bad love, bad love.
Steve, a very generic title for me gives a hint as to why I think this is probably the weakest song on the album. Just as the opposite of the previous track, I found that the chorus on this song really didn't hold my interest. Possibly the savings grace is a really nice beat to it. It's the second shortest song on the album, and for me, that might be to its benefit.
T-Bone, and for this one, this really reminded me of a throwback to the 80s. From the synth to the lyrics to the melody. And like you said, I gotta agree, it's not a bad song. It's probably the weakest on the album, but I still enjoyed it. It still kind of started to grow on me as I listened to this album for the podcast review.
Enjoyed it, yes. I just gotta say, it probably is one of my least favorite on the overall album.
Then we go to the track, Let's Go Outside.
Let's go outside. Watch the stars go waltzing by. You and me together underneath this sky. Let's go outside.
This one started out a bit slow for me, T-Bone. This one here is probably my least favorite on the album, to come to think of it. You guys have been hearing me for a year say this is a filler track.
Yeah.
It's kind of lackluster compared to the songs that came before it. I feel this one just didn't have the depth musically, vocally, like the prior songs that we've heard.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you on that. The highlight for me is the use of a backbeat that creates a different kind of sound for this track. The regular beat kicks in, though, and it's really kind of a sound that we're familiar with on this album. But I just wasn't convinced by the vocals. Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. All that being said, I think we have another weak track, making it 2 in a row. And that brings us up to the 8th track, Brand New.
Baby, I'm updated. Ain't got time for wasting. Gonna feel brand new. No more conversations, 'cause I'm making changes. Gonna feel brand new.
Steve, this is the 4th one co-written by Alice. She had quite a bit of involvement. And as far as I could tell, I definitely could be wrong, but this seems to be the first song with the use of some guitars in it. It's not any sort of skilled guitar work, but it fits perfectly in with the synths and the bass, which I'm guessing is probably also electronic. Altogether, it wrapped up on a really nice dance beat. I like this song.
Yeah, I did too. And this one, like you said, was written by Alice as well. This is actually the second of her covers that made it to the album.
Is that right?
'Cause I wanna feel brand new. Wanna feel brand new. Baby, I'm updated. Ain't got time for wasted. Gonna feel brand new. Gonna feel brand new.
But this one here, I do feel like the album gets back on track. It has an enjoyable beat. The vocals seem to work and get this album back on track.
Yeah. And that leads us up to the 9th song, Need a Little More. This one, again, has that same kind of style of guitars that are in the background, and I love that sound going along with the beat. The vocals, I felt, were spot on, both sultry and mesmerizing. While it might not be the best song on the album, I really do think this one holds up fairly well.
Yeah, and I really like this one. I think the reason I liked it, it's a little bit of a slower tempo. As you mentioned, a lot of these songs are dance songs, which is not a bad thing. It's just kind of nice that they just mixed it up a little bit. And I really enjoyed the haunting vocals or the haunting melody that Karen and Sarah give on this particular track. Which brings us to the track Forever Young.
Nothing lasts forever, but I remember you. Times we had together, live on forever, me and you.
T-Bone, I like how this track is paced. It starts off a bit slower, but this track really kicks into gear when it reaches that chorus. And this has become one of my new favorite songs on the album.
Yeah, you know what? This is the final track co-written by Alice. Yes, she was involved quite a bit. As has become a common theme on the album, the beat is there. Good vocals are present, a strong chorus. This track really puts the keyboards in the background. They're there, but they don't take on as strong a position as the beat and the chorus itself. And that leads us up to the final track on the album, Waiting for the Sun to Shine.
World is waiting, open up your eyes. The world is waiting for the sun to shine. And each day will bring something new on the horizon.
Steve, I thought this was a strong track to close out the albums. The synths and the beat are on target. Sarah's and Karen's voice, especially during the chorus, are both powerful and convincing to me.
T-Bone, I do agree. I do appreciate that they tried to have each track kind of sound a bit unique. This one starts off on a different note, but builds into an amazing song. And the use of that synth on this song makes this an outstanding track and has become probably my 3rd favorite song on the album.
So how do I feel about this album, Steve? I'm a little torn. I just remember those early 80s days where their music kind of had a simplicity and sweetness in their songs. Then in the late 80s, they changed direction to more of a Euro dance, and it hasn't really changed since then. Do I hate that music? Absolutely not. But it's just so different from their first few albums.
And see, T-Bone, overall, I'd give this album a solid recommendation. Whether you're a new fan or a lifelong fan of Bananarama, this album is one that I've been listening to and really actually enjoying it. If you're looking for something that's new and you're a fan in general of any of the new wave synth pop, you're going to enjoy this album. And I'd highly recommend to pick it up.
To finish up on this, Steve, I kind of went back to our reviews of those most recent Gary Newman albums. On this album, if you took the title out of the track of what they're singing, I think you'd find a little difficulty in knowing one song from another. For me, they just kind of all blended in. It's good dance music. It just didn't really hit me with the strongest note.
Well, T-Bone, and we're in between reviews, so let's not break tradition. Let's get into some music news.
Absolutely, yeah. So, unfortunately, Bauhaus has put a break on their tour right now. It looks like Peter Murphy is having some issues. He's going to go into rehab. I don't know what that fully means, but they have canceled their tour for the time being. They're most likely going to reconvene at some later date. So, either hold on to your tickets or just keep an eye out for that.
And T-Bone, we did get some new music this week. The Lightning Seeds dropped a new track, Emily Smiles.
And she says hi, haven't seen you in a while. Then Emily smiles.
And this is coming up from their new album, See You in the Stars, which comes out October 14th of 2022.
I am so looking forward to that. Huge fan of the Lightning Seeds, and it's been a while since we've seen material from them. The Church has a new single called The Hypnagogue.
The snare in your heart. You won't get something. Did you make a reservation? You won't get something out of mine.
Now, I believe that might be the name of their upcoming album also, but it's still going to be a little while before we see that. That is expected to drop around March of 2023.
Danny Elfman actually surprised people and announced he's actually doing a small little tour show. October 28th and 29th at the Hollywood Bowl, Halloween weekend. He's bringing his From Boingo to Batman to Big Mess and Beyond show.
And then last but not least, Kate Bush, you may have heard of her. She has a little song called Running Up That Hill.
Falling chord, and make a deal with God, and I get him to swap our places. Be running up that road, be running up that hill, be running up that building.
Have you heard of that one, Steve?
Song of the Summer.
Yeah, I'll say it is. Now, interestingly enough, because this has not been done in a long, long time, she's going to release a CD single of that song. You will be able to find that at the website store.rhino.com, and we'll put a link for that in our podcast description and on the website. And so, Steve, let's go into our second review. This is going to be for Information Society. I don't know how you couldn't know their huge hits, such as What's on Your Mind, Pure Energy.
I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I wanna know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Walking Away. And Lay All Your Love on Me.
Don't go wasting your emotion. Lay all your love on me.
So, Steve, this one is called ODDfellows. Came out in 2021. This is their 8th studio album, and their last album was still fairly recent, Orders of Magnitude from 2016, and that was an album comprised mostly of cover songs. So in the band, we have Paul Robb on keyboards and percussion, Kurt Larson on vocals, keyboards, and percussion, and James Cassidy on bass, guitar, and vocals. These are all original members from 82 and 83. Amanda Kramer, who was with the band early on then, she left the band quite some time ago, but these three are original members.
All right, T-Bone, so let's jump into the ODDfellows review. It opens with the track Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds.
I think it's terrific.
Who is like unto God?
I love how this opens with the vocal sampling and the beats. Easily remind you of the classic sounds of the Information Society. I also like how it kind of serves as a little intro, kind of sets the ambience or the mood, getting you back into that. It's kind of similar to Hoodoo Gurus did with their album.
Yeah, no, that's a good analogy. Yeah, and Steve, this is clearly the song title of the year. It's less a song so much as, just as you said, an introduction to the album. It's filled with samples, and this is going to sound strange, Steve, I know, but primarily with the powerful beat on here, it reminds me of early Public Enemy with a new wave bend. I think this is a great way to start the album. Like you said, it's kind of a reintroduction, and it works wonderfully. Next up is the second track, Would You Like Me to If I Played a Guitar?
Would you like me if I played a guitar? Would you like me if I had a nice car? People tell me that I'm going too far. Would you like me if I played a guitar?
Now, Steve, this is one of my favorite songs on the album. It's with this track that the album really takes off. It has an incredible beat. And as we've said with other artists, I can only imagine how good this song would sound live. It seems like some guitars come late in the song, but I get a feeling they're samples or created by synths. The fact of the matter is, some of the lyrics are a little bit silly. Would you like me if I played a guitar? Would you like me if I had a nice car? But they're fun and they fit in.
T-Bone, I absolutely love the opening to this track. It took me back to the simpler days of the early 90s when I first heard of Information Society. And this is one of the album highlights for me, like you said as well for you. Everything from the tempo to the vocals, and I actually liked the lyrics. They actually made it work.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. They work fantastically. A little silly, but they work fantastic.
You can have silly lyrics and make it work if you're talented.
Oh, absolutely. No, I completely agree. And that takes us up to the third track, World Enough.
Just give me a sign. I know that I could change your mind. You're mine.
The great dance beat continues on this song. Kurt's vocals are fantastic, and I really do think the chorus is one of the best on the album. I would say that if there's any song here that reminds me of that 80s new wave sound, this would be it. But that should not sound like it's just a retread. This song has its own life. Really enjoy this one.
This one, again, is another track I thoroughly enjoyed. The song really kicks into gear, like you said, with that chorus and the various synth solos over the percussions. I actually found that very enjoyable.
Yes.
Which takes us to the track Room 1904. You're going to hear this a lot. I'm going to start sounding like a broken record, T-Bone, but this is another solid track that I really enjoyed. This one is a great track. It gets to highlight Kurt's vocals, though, and it does a great job on that. I also love the use of the synth keyboards on this one as well. They go perfect with Kurt's vocals.
You know, this actually is another one of my favorite songs on this album. And if even possible, the beat even picks up on this track. I love how at times the vocals move from one side of the audio plane to the other. The beat is so strong and infectious that you can't help moving as it continues. Wonderful song.
Which moves us to the next track, Nothing Prevails. T-Bone, this is probably the one track on the album that didn't really connect with me. It's not a bad track. It's just this is probably my least favorite, and it's on an album packed of hits. It's not a bad thing. I did like how the tempo and the vocals changed from the verse to the chorus and then back to the verses again. It's subtle. I thought it was done very well.
Yeah, you know, I think I like this one a little bit more than you did, Steve. Things change up a bit with the synthesized beat on this track. It starts off a bit raw before moving into a more standard version, but then that darker beat returns. I don't like to compare songs to other bands very often, but this one gave me a combination of Depeche Mode's Violator and Songs of Faith and Devotion vibe. It's probably the most different track on the album. For me, it really worked. And that leads us to the sixth track, Being Me.
Everything you want, it was just me. It was just me. Being me.
Things slow down a fair amount on this track. It's really kind of an interesting change of pace. After multiple dance tracks, this one is far more contemplative. The chorus does bring in some bombastic beat and synths, but for the most part, this is a ballad, Information Society style. Other than the opening track, this is the shortest, and while it's an interesting song, it may be it may be for the best that this is a shorter version.
And see, T-Bone, I think I actually enjoyed this one more than you. I never would have thought that I would hear an almost ballad-like type song from Information Society, but wow, I love this. The deeper bass vocals and the slow down pace of the song, highlighted by some great keyboards, gave me a new appreciation for Information Society. Takes us to the next track, Bennington.
I still love the girl from Hennepin, even though I'll never see her eyes.
This one, again, has a great use of synth work and almost couldn't help by how much this track reminded me of the band Red Flag. You brought up some Depeche Mode comparisons earlier.
Yeah.
This is another album highlight for me on this track, a great new wave synth pop Information Society track.
Yeah, it's mesmerizing and often sharp synths are the highlight of the track for me. Kurt's vocals are very smooth and accompany those synths wonderfully. As a matter of fact, his voice on this song may just be the best on the album.
Oh, without a doubt.
And that'll lead us up to the 8th track, Down in Flames. Steve, this is actually my favorite, one of my favorite songs on this album. It begins with some extremely interesting Arabian style synths. They create a sound that we haven't heard on the rest of the album. The bass line, which is very prevalent throughout the song, adds to the overall sound, but it's those synths and that specific sound that make it so great. None of the tracks on this album are particularly long, but for me, this one ended too quickly.
T-Bone, I agree with you 100% on this one. This is actually my favorite song on the album. I love the synth work on this. It reminded me of a little bit of Gary Newman if you take out some of the more industrial type sound of his recent work. Needless to say, T-Bone, this one made the album for me. I love this song.
It's one of the best. I agree. And that's going to lead us up to Grups, the 9th track. Now, Steve, I don't know what a grup is, but this, I hate to say it, is probably my least favorite song on this album. It's a much slower track, which isn't really its main problem. For me, it just doesn't seem to go anywhere. While not horrible by any means, this one kind of bored me on an otherwise outstanding album.
And see, T-Bone, this is where we're going to disagree. We've reached the crossroads. This is actually my second favorite track on the album. I love the opening with the vocal samples that fade into Kurt's vocals. But what sold me on this track was the chorus and the little use of that bonk bonk. The first time hearing this, it just brought a smile to my face. Now, as you pointed out earlier, some of the lyrics on this album are a little simple. I did take issue with Soft Cell a few episodes ago with similar lyrics. But Mark Allman needs to take notes on how to deliver those lyrics musically and make them work fantastically like it did in this song.
And I will give you that, Steve, but still, what is a grup? And that leads us up to
it makes it an enjoyable song is what that is.
Okay, well, we'll disagree a little bit, but that leads us up to the final track, number 10, The Mimble's Daughter. We finish things with a mid-tempo song here that really works. It's a smooth song, and while the pace is a little bit slower at times, it does pick up later in the track. This is also the longest song on the album at just under 5 minutes, but it moves so quickly you won't know it, and you'll want it to go on.
T-Bone, from the opening intro, before I even heard any vocals on this song, I was all in.
Yeah.
I love the melody in it, the synth work, the music on this fantastic. And actually, this song's probably going to be in my top 5 Information Society songs that they have in their catalog.
Nice.
And what a way to close out an amazing album.
Yeah, no, I completely agree on that.
So T-Bone, overall, I'm all in on Oddfellows. I will admit I grew a bit tired of early Information Society. I was probably one of the few that wasn't a fan or a big fan of the mega hit, What's on Your Mind. That was not one of my personal favorites from the band. But wow, I was blown away by this album. Information Society has matured into a solid, very talented band. I'm so thankful for, this is actually one of our listeners that suggested this album. I'm very grateful that they did suggest this. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'd recommend picking it up if you haven't picked it up yet. In fact, this has gotten me to go back and revisit Information Society albums that they've put out in the last decade or so.
Yeah, I am so glad that Information Society continues to make music. They have a particular style, I believe, that is unmistakable. At times, there's a little bit of sense of humor hidden inside. Sometimes it's just a great dance beat. These guys have known each other so long, and their skills show that camaraderie. Needless to say, Steve, I completely agree with you. I recommend this album a lot. It's fun. It's danceable, it's new, but it still has that sound that we know and love. There's so much going on that I think it's one that those that are unfamiliar with them will even find something to enjoy. Long-term fans, I'm convinced this will be exactly what they want.
Yeah, T-Bone, I agree with you 100%. This was a very enjoyable album. I'm grateful that our listeners reached out to us and suggested this. And in fact, we actually had the opportunity to sit down and chat with Paul Robb. That interview was fantastic, but we couldn't cram it into this episode. So we're actually going to be releasing that as a separate episode, probably about a week from this episode's release.
Yeah, no, I think people will really enjoy it, whether you're a big Information Society fan or you just like music in general. I think people will get something out of it.
And looking ahead to our next episode, we're going to be reviewing the brand new album from Altered Images. And another listener suggested episode or review from the latest from Holly Johnson. You'll know him from Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Yeah, that album's a little bit older, but it's always good to go back and kind of review things that are a little bit in the past. And yeah, I'm really excited to go into that Altered Images. I mean, some of their music back in the early to mid 80s are some of my favorites of all time.
And if any of our listeners have any other suggestions, we always love to hear from you. You can reach out to us on most social media. Just look for New Wave Music Podcast.
And then don't forget, we have our new website. It's newwavemusicpodcast.com. It's kind of a hub for everything that we're doing with this podcast. You'll find episodes there, top 10 lists, concert photos, and we would love your contribution to that. And so at that, we will see you next time.